Oh my goodness, CPU prices are going absolutely insane right now. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. AMD is taking a flamethrower to prices across the spectrum, and they're even forcing Intel to do the same. We've got 13th Gen Raptor Lake processors slugging it out with Ryzen 7000 and the 5800X3D. Who wins in that matchup? And we'll take a look at the best price to performance gaming CPUs as well as production CPUs with Black Friday discounts coming right down the pike. If you get value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by Recover It. Remember that time you lost all your pictures when your phone died? Or that time your hard drive crashed and took all your files with it? If only you had Recover It, the amazing app that can rescue your lost or corrupted data from PC, Mac, iPhone, Android, heck, even tablets, USB drives, and camera SD cards. It's easy. Download Recover It using the link in the video description. Use the free file scan and preview recovery, select the data to recover, and boom, your files are back or you don't pay. Recover It can even restore corrupted 4 and 8K video using its patented technology. Get your files back by downloading Recover It for free using the link in the video description today. Let's jump into the Intel side pricing before we get to those bonkers Ryzen price cuts. Obviously, the big news for Intel was the launch of 13th Gen. Now, just quick note on the spreadsheet, you'll notice I gotten rid of like the 13600K and 13600KF distinction. The only difference between them is the integrated GPU. We're just gonna use the lower of the two prices. If you're a video editor, get the K, everybody else just get the cheaper one. But looking at, for instance, the 13600K pricing, you can see it's already been discounted. And this is actually for the K right now over at Amazon, $300. This was pre-release priced at $329. Now it's down to $300. Obviously you could get the KF for $309. So overall it's about a 10% price drop, but really, really nice. 13700K for $421, already come down a couple of bucks. The 13900K, the reason this has gone up by 5%, mostly just sold out everywhere. So you're looking at effectively third-party sellers who are charging quite a bit of a price premium if you want it now and you don't want to wait for it to restock at Newegg or Best Buy or somewhere like that. On the 12th Gen side, essentially unchanged this month, except for two notables. 12400F has come down about 10%. They've lowered that price to be more competitive with the Ryzen 5600, but it's not. I'll show you why in just a second. And then we've got the i9 12900K. They dropped it by 16%. Makes a lot of sense since it's no longer really outperforms like the 13700K. Of course, links to all these CPUs are down in the video description if you want to check out current pricing or if you're in a different region. All right, let's get over to those absolutely insane Ryzen CPU price cuts. And look at that. Look at the change from last month. AMD has cut them down anywhere from about 17% all the way up to about 33% across the board. Ryzen 5500. Now, this is a CPU that was not a big fan at its price. Doesn't have PCIe Gen 3. It's basically a 5600G without the G, without the integrated graphics on it. But at $99 right now, very competitive with the i3 12100F, and it beats it in multi-threaded workload. So actually very, very good. And especially that since the B450 motherboards that you can use with it are super, super cheap. But really the one that's absolutely bonkers, well, one of the ones that's bonkers is the Ryzen 5600 down to $120. That's a 25% price cut. I mean, look at that, $119 right now. This is Amazon. You can buy it right now for delivery, $120. At that price, it's like, does anything make any sense? Obviously, AMD decided Intel is not allowed to own the low end. They want to challenge the i3 12100F. This CPU is only about 20 bucks more, and it does outperform it. 5600X comes down to $170. That's about down 12%. That's pretty good. 5700G came down 33% to $168. That's insane for, 8 cores, 16 threads. But really the one that's totally bonkers in my mind is the 5800X3D. Came down $70 to $329. Right now it seems to be sold out just about everywhere. It does also come with a game bundle if you get this on Newegg if you're a US customer. This is an absolutely great CPU. Now, it seems to have sold out everywhere as I'm filming this. Stock is pulsing in and out. I expect more to come. And I suspect this is going to be its absolutely new price as AMD looks to fight off Raptor Lake, but we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Right now, though, absolutely insane pricing. And then, yes, 5900X came down a little bit, but the rest of the stack, including the Ryzen 7000 CPUs, essentially unchanged. Now, Ryzen 7000 will have some advantages. Things are getting better. DDR5 memory is getting cheaper. B650 motherboards are here, so they look a lot better than they did last month. But can they beat that 5800X3D? Let's jump into why CPU prices are so insane right now. It's not even Black Friday yet, although it's coming down the pike. We may see even bigger cuts. But why are we already seeing AMD slash prices on Ryzen 5000? Why are we already seeing Intel slash prices on some of the 13th gen Intel CPUs? Well, what changed? We got 13th gen Intel CPUs launched, and we got benchmark data with the RTX 4090. Remember when Ryzen 7000 launched? That testing data was done with the RTX 3090 Ti. So now we've got the full picture of everything out there and all these CPUs using both expensive DDR5 memory as well as super cheap DDR4 memory. That's 3600 CL14 is what TechSpot uses for their testing. I wouldn't recommend anyone actually run out and buy it. Get 3600 CL16 or maybe 4000 CL18 instead. But let's just take a look at the data itself. What do we see? We see a lot of these CPUs are all bunched up at the top, and this is using an RTX 4090 at 1080p. If we go to 1440p, these gaps narrow even more. Essentially what we're saying is, yes, you can push another 5, maybe even 10% using super expensive platforms like, 13900K with DDR5 memory. That being said, if you look at something like the Ryzen 5800X 3D, it's right there in the main pack using super cheap components. Now, when we mix in productivity benchmarks, the picture gets really, really murky, quite honestly. If you want the best, go buy a 13900K 7950X. In terms of price to performance, we'll go through that in a moment because we did get B650 motherboards. They're cheaper than X670 motherboards. If you missed our best motherboard for Ryzen 7000 video, I'll leave a link to that down in the video description. We go through the ones that we think you should be buying right now. We did the same thing for 13th generation Intel, by the way. Those Z690 motherboards look super, super attractive as long as you're getting one with BIOS flashback on it. We go through all of that in the video. Check it out. Overall, if you're looking for a lot of productivity, 13th gen Intel, especially like the 13600K, definitely looks very, very attractive, even if it's not the fastest in gaming. So what's happened to sales overall? And this is what's really driving prices. And I think we can draw some conclusions here about where prices are going to go, especially over the Black Friday season. Looking at this is tweeted out by Tech Epiphany. They tweet out the Mind Factory, which is a German retailer for CPUs, and their weekly CPU numbers. Now, taking a look at the post-Raptor launch world, we see that the AM4, that's AM4 socket, that's Ryzen 5000 and older, it's primarily Ryzen 5000, selling 4,550 units, almost a 3-to-1 advantage over 12th and 13th gen Intel combined. That's LGA 1700 socket. But not all great news for AMD because the AM5 platform is selling terribly. Only 300 units being sold. AMD has some very serious problems with Ryzen 7000 adoption. It has to do with the platform cost, obviously, because we know the performance is there, at least in gaming, and it should be somewhat attractive because you can at least think about upgrading this platform in the future, as you did with, like the Ryzen 1000, Ryzen 2000, but people still just aren't adopting it. Of course, if we dive deeper into these Mind Factory numbers, we can see that the 5800X 3D is outselling just everything. 1,850 units. It's almost 4 times the next one, which is the 5800X, which I guess is on some kind of discount, but by itself outselling Raptor Lake. That's pretty insane. Let's jump into the best CPUs for production and gaming, of course. How do we do this? Well, if you didn't watch our video from last month, we basically take the total platform cost for each CPU. So we take a motherboard cost, we take a RAM cost, we take the cooler cost, we add it together and we divide it by the performance both in production as well as in gaming. And I have now updated those gaming scores to reflect 4090 testing. They're all tied back to the i3 12100F. So they're all a percent faster of the i3 12100F, which has a base score of 100 because it's 100% as fast as it is. And all the costs for the X670, the motherboards, the DDR5, DDR4 RAM, the coolers, all that are also in here. There is a link to this spreadsheet if you don't like the way I have configured these, if you disagree with me or if prices are just different in your region, check out the link in the video description. You can get in here, make a copy, play around with it yourself. Let's jump into the best budget gaming CPUs, and this is where the total platform price is less than $400. Look at that. The i3 12100F has been unseated as the budget gaming king. I honestly did not think that this was possible given how great its price to performance was, but the Ryzen 5 5600 came out of nowhere with an amazing, incredible price cut to $120, and it has more performance than the i3 12100F, B5 550 motherboards are rough on parity with a B660 in terms of price. They tend to have much better features at those prices, but you can always pick a good B660, so I'm not going to hold that against the 1200F. You really can't go wrong with either one of these if you really want to dial into one platform or the other. And I will say the 5600 is going to cost you a little bit more money. At $262, it's about $24 more, but in terms of overall performance, especially if you're going to get like an RX 6600, 6600 XT, maybe a used like 2070, you will see that performance. And you come out at $2.34, just ahead of the i3 1200F at $2.38. Now, if you want to go up in performance a little bit here, I think you're going to the Ryzen 5600X. Does get a little bit more expensive. It's another $40 or $50 over the 5600, though you do pick up some additional performance. Again, if you already have a faster GPU, maybe you go there, but I would probably keep investing money in that GPU as long as you got the 5600. Jumping over to the best mid-range gaming CPU. So this is where the gaming score is 119 or greater, and the total price is $650 or less. And look at that, Ryzen running away with it. Obviously, huge price cuts across the board for Ryzen. The Ryzen 5600 right now, $2.62. And honestly, hard to beat. You just should keep investing money in that GPU until it gets up to 3080, 3090 level. And then yes, consider something like the 5800X 3D, which again, massive price reduction on it, uses cheaper DDR4 memory. Even the premium DDR4 stuff has gotten super cheap. 13600K, don't sleep on that necessarily. Now, it's definitely more expensive in terms of some of the platform costs, mostly because I'm recommending that we go with a performance liquid all-in-one cooler with it, given the higher thermals, and the 5800X 3D doesn't need as much cooling. That's kind of what's separating these two right now, to be quite honest. If you want to go with a cheaper cooler, maybe that price to performance gets a little tighter, but honestly, 5800X 3D really to me is the buy, unless you also do quite a bit of productivity work. Then I think the 13600K does make sense as a great gaming hybrid production system. Let's go through mid-range production, and then we'll go through performance production before we get to high performance gaming. And mid-range production, pretty amazing value right now. If you don't need PCIe Gen 4 in your work process, is the Ryzen 7 5700G. That thing is down to $168. Remember, it's an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, and pretty good CPU at that. Price to performance about $1.90, and you're using cheaper B450 motherboards because it doesn't have PCIe Gen 4. You don't need to worry about that. Now, that being said, if PCIe Gen 4 is part of your work process, I think, look at that, the 13600K with DDR4 memory using a Z690 quality motherboard that you can get for about $170, $180, $2.33 in terms of an overall price to performance. That being said, it's almost double the cost of the 5700G. So if you want to look at something a little cheaper, the 5700X, kind of right there, $465, your total price on that. The 5800X, not that much difference, honestly. It's about $10 more. You might just get the 5800X. What the heck? 12700F also continues to be a really, really strong contender. And remember, except for the 5700G, all of these are also strong gaming CPUs. Jumping over to high performance production. So I will say, I think you look at the top of the chart, you're like, oh, Jason, Intel is dominating Ryzen. Why is that? Well, honestly, there's a big reason. It's that the multi-core score, this is typically Cinebench. Cinebench doesn't really care about your memory speed. So yes, you're seeing DDR4 production processes here on the 13900K versus DDR5, faster DDR5 on the 7950X. 7950X would actually win in a lot of production benchmarks. So I will look at diversifying this a little bit. This wasn't really an issue until 13th gen launched right now. So we'll have to take a look at that. But I will say that 13900K, 13700K, 13600K with DDR4 or the 7950X, all very, very competitive here. Now, obviously the 7950X, that platform will have more longevity in front of it. You'll be able to upgrade that CPU. 13900K is a quote unquote dead platform. That being said, when are you really going to upgrade that thing in the next 5 years? Unless you do super high performance work, which maybe that's what you're looking for. In that case, grab the 7950X. If you're looking for high performance at something of a discount, especially certain kinds of workloads that the 5950X still does really, really well, that's definitely one to look at. I will say, if we look at the DDR5 memory contenders, they're not great. And definitely 12th gen Intel falls, just completely falls out of the equation here. I would skip 12th gen Intel until they absolutely start hacking away at those prices, which they need to do. Now the moment probably everyone's been waiting for, what's the best high performance gaming CPU? If you're gonna get an RTX 4090, a 4080, if you're gonna get one of the brand new RX 7900 XTX or 7900 XT, what kind of CPU should you be looking at? Well, honestly, 5800X 3D. I mean, look at that price to performance, $3.83. Absolutely insane. Blows everything else away. I will say the 13600K using DDR4 memory gets kind of close, but the gaming score significantly lower than the 5800X 3D because it's not using that faster DDR5 memory, and slightly more costly because it needs more air cooling than I think the 5800X 3D than I would recommend for that. $3.83 price to performance 5800X 3D and $4.30 for 13600K. Now, if you're absolutely looking for the max performance, you're looking at the i9 13900K, and you can see it all the way down at the bottom of the chart because it gets super expensive. You get diminishing returns as you want more and more performance. You're gonna have to spend more and more dollars to get each performance increase. The 7700X, on the other hand, if you're just looking for a lot of gaming performance, probably something that will scale, probably a platform that will continue to be upgradable in the future, that's actually becoming more and more attractive, especially as DDR5 6000 speed memory comes down with those expo timings. Now that we got B650 in there, you can see much more competition from Ryzen 7600X and Ryzen 7700X. Hopefully in the next month or so, we'll see that trend continue. And I also hope we'll see some price cuts for 12th gen Intel. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, what are we waiting for at this point? It's Black Friday. We've got all the products are out. AMD just did their big announcement for Radeon RX 7900 XTX and 7900 XT. If you missed our launch day coverage of that, I'll leave a link to it down in the video description. Check it out. We go through how it's going to impact GPU prices, what we think of the overall performance of it. We'll be out on December 13th. So you're looking probably to buy most of your components around Black Friday. We're just weeks away from Black Friday as I film this. Let's go through the budget level. At the budget level, what would I do? I'd be buying right now. Maybe the 5600X comes down to $120. AMD does have kind of a history of making it rain in terms of cutting prices on last generation CPUs around Black Friday. So it is possible you could score the most amazing deal ever. That being said, a 5600 at $120, that's a pretty amazing deal. B550 motherboards, those kind of things do tend to go on sale. So if you got your eye on like a super nice one that might have a huge price cut, maybe you wait. Maybe you wait until Black Friday, but you're only waiting weeks. You're not waiting months at this point. GPU, same thing. I think AMD is going to make it rain in terms of RX 60, 650 XT, 6700 XTs, those kinds of mid-range GPUs. If you're a mid-range gaming buyer, so you're looking to spend about $2,000 and you want to stretch up and get that 7900 XTX, maybe even a 4080 16 gigabyte in there, 5800X 3D just makes so much sense with DDR4 memory, cheap B550 mother with a lot of features, by the way. 13600K also kind of throw into the mix there. I think we're going to do a best 13600K build guide on the channel. Should come out the day after this video. Does look very attractive, especially if you do a lot of production tasks in addition to gaming. Great hybrid system. That being said, just a great gaming system on its own. At the ultra high end, yeah, if you're gonna dump all the monies into an RTX 4090 or 4080 16 gigabyte, yeah, by all means, if you have money left over, get that 13900K. Though I will say the Ryzen 7700X looks super attractive because, again, it doesn't require as much cooling to get most of that performance. The 13900K hits 100 degree TJ Maxx immediately, just immediately. Brace yourself for that. That being said, 13900K is amazing. So if you can get one, go ahead and do it. But I do like the 7700X right now, especially as the price of that DDR5 memory, the 6000 speed memory that has the expo timings, has come way down, and we are expecting a lot more kits to hit the market here in the next month. So overall, green light everybody. If you are thinking of waiting at this point, you're out of your mind. This is the moment that we have been waiting for 2 years since the GPU shortage began. This is probably one of the best moments to ever build a gaming PC. I mean, 1440p, we put together a $680 1440p gaming PC. I will tell you right now, if I go look at it, it's probably almost $600 now. It's probably come down 80 bucks. And around Black Friday, you probably will be able to build something like that for around 550, maybe even 500 bucks. That's insane. 4K gaming has never been this cheap. 4K monitors are going to be out there. So we'll have Black Friday guides, of course. When all the Black Friday circulars come out, we'll do all that kind of stuff. But right now is the best time to build ever. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. If you missed our coverage of AMD's Radeon 7000 series announcement, check it out right here. We go through all the specs of the cards, how we think it's going to impact the GPU market. Spoiler alert, AMD just crushed GPU prices, and whether or not you should be buying one. And we'll catch you on the next one.